Hello to the CG Watch fam, and today we're taking a look at the Longines Hydro Conquest. That's coming up right after this. So a huge thank you to Scott for lending me this piece to do a review on. Now, as you can see, this is the black version of the Hydro Conquest, and it is a hefty piece with a lot of good characteristics and a few flaws that drove me nuts. Now, overall, this piece feels incredibly well built, but the first thing I noticed that betrayed that first impression was the feel of the bezel. Now, while I can't say that there's much play in it because the reality is that there isn't, it just didn't feel as hefty or satisfying as the rest of the build. The sound was a little bit hollow and aluminum-y, which isn't a word, but it does apply to this particular bezel. Now, the dial is a nice deep black with a subtle sunburst that I did really enjoy. Now, while the minute track has round and framed markers every 5 places on the track, you still get rectangular hour markers along the inside of that same track. Now, while I could argue that this is a bit repetitive from a design perspective, I suspect it helps to offset the imbalance that the dial might adopt without those markers due to the large numbers at 6, 9, and 12. The sweeping seconds hand has a very small red arrowhead at its tip, and I do like the pop of color, but personally I would have preferred a longer arrowhead because it would have made the design feel more intentional rather than last minute flair. Part of what gives this watch an easily dressed up kind of feel is the mix of brushed and polished surfaces, with brushed lug tops and polished case sides and bezel. Additionally, the bracelet shares that design with brushed outer links and polished inner links. Now, while I like the crown guards and the crown itself from an aesthetic perspective, I don't think the crown guards are ideal from a practical perspective. And here's what I mean by that. Now, the top corners of each guard are sharper than I would like, and I've caught my thumb a few good times when screwing the crown back down. I like that the top portion of the crown has a push button type of design and is of course signed with the Longines logo. I do, however, have to point out that how small the logo is, considering the space available, makes me feel like I could easily have gone without it. Now, in regard to nighttime legibility, it's pretty damn good, and it's when I fell in love with the large numbers on the dial. The fact that they're loomed is simply a design feature I've always liked to see when the lights go out. Additionally, that diamond on the hour hand simply makes the dial much more legible regardless of your current lighting. Now, one of the most impressive aspects of this watch is the case back. I think the sheer depth of the design and its size prompts you to stare at the case back more than you would your average solid case back. Now, in regard to the bracelet, I think the quality is actually pretty freaking impressive, and it feels about as solid as a tank. It has an H-link style design rather than a more common oyster style bracelet, and that's a differentiation I can appreciate. The one disappointment is the push pin system used for an otherwise well-built bracelet. At this price point, I feel like you should be getting screw pins instead. Now, the fold-over clasp is incredibly secure. Maybe a little too much if that's possible, as it can be a little tough to open. But once you manage, you can see that you've got what looks like milled stainless steel rather than stamped metal, and it's signed here as well as on the fold-over portion. As a true dive watch, it also has a diver's extension that snaps securely out and into place. My one annoyance with what would be an otherwise perfect bracelet has to do with the lugs. Look how far out the lugs come. You have extra millimeters that are added to the lug to lug width, and I can't figure out why. I would much prefer that the solid end-link length match the length of the lugs, or at least have significantly less overhang than it does here. I mean, take the Marathon G-SAR for example that you're looking at now. It's pretty close to the lug length matching the length of the end links on the bracelet. Now, the extra length is part of what makes this watch wear bigger than just the case diameter implies. The lug width is also an odd 21mm, which I also don't get. Now, you can squeeze on a more common 22mm band, as I did in fact do with this one. Now, the watch runs on the Longines caliber L633, which is a top grade 2824, which leads me to an annoyance that I have with Longines. Why not just say it's an ETA 2824? Giving it a Longines caliber name without any significant modification that I can find just seems a little bit disingenuous from an otherwise exquisite brand. And it's a big pet peeve of mine personally. All in all, I think this is a good looking watch that breaks ever so slightly from a conventional Submariner look with nicely applied markers and 300 meters of water resistance. While I do think there's some small areas for improvement, it's still very aesthetically pleasing, and I've enjoyed my time with it. I'd love to hear what you guys think about this piece, particularly if you own one. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. I mean, it doesn't cost you anything, and who doesn't like free stuff? As always, if this is your first time here, don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this. That's it for this one. CG, out.